For the very first time in the year 2026, we are here live and in living color, back on in customary form. Thank God for schedules and organization and stuff like that. Normally where we'd be on a Friday, lunchtime live. Hope everybody had a good, happy, healthy, safe New Year's Eve, all that fun stuff. Remember, it is not New Year's Eve. I'm not going to get into that because I know it pisses some people off. Either way, we're here. It's 2026. TJ not with us. He is on the physically unable to perform list. He got the Black Death that is going around everywhere. So hopefully we'll get him back up and better than ever by next week. But Vegas Mac is here. And Mac, I have this thing on the Friday show. I always want to make sure everybody has a positive thing to start the show. Give yourselves a collective pat on the back because you made it to Friday.
Nice.
Some of you might be working. If you are, that sucks, but we're happy you're here with us. So do your best to pretend that you're working because we know you don't want to be there. Look at you, got Roz checking in early. You know what? We haven't seen anything from you all year. It's good to see that.
Man, it's about time.
Vegas Mac, fresh off a feast of all feasts on New Year's Eve. How in the hell are you, my brother?
And I'm doing well. Nice full day of football yesterday with a lot of excitement and joy. And I'm looking out my window. I put up a new bird feeder so I can look at birds while we're talking. So it's always fun.
Because it's so easy to keep your attention normally during this show. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along, and we'll get as many of them up on the screen as we can. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat because we're not 12. And Snapchat sucks. Apparently, my camera matrix is still stuck in like 1989 VHS mode. We have no idea what's happening. We will probably fix it. But it's nice to be in somewhat of a normal routine. You know, we joked the other day. Today is Friday, Decemberary.
Right.
You know, that's where everybody is right now. By Monday, it usually goes back to normal for most people. But here we are. There's a lot to catch up on. We've obviously got a massive weekend in the NFL. We've got 3 very huge games with implications, a bunch of other teams playing for positioning and everything else right now. We'll get into those at the bottom of the program. We'll talk about what we saw in a very interesting set of college football playoff quarterfinals, as well as some headlines in the other parts of the sports world. There's a lot of shit going on right now, Mac.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you turn the page, and for some sports, we're turning to the last chapter of the page. But for other sports, it's a brand new season, brand new start. And for some like college football, they're still trying to determine a national champion. Yet the portal opens today.
Yeah,
Go figure.
4,000 players in the portal that opened today. We have some quarterback news to pass along. There's a new signal caller. Or not yet officially, but basically officially, no surprise to anybody in Penn State for Matt Campbell and the crew in Happy Valley. We'll talk about that. Quarterbacks on the move, quarterbacks being tagged with no contact, all kinds of stuff going on. Quarterbacks returning, petitions. A guy last night that we might have to have a conversation about his standing as far as it goes for the NFL. But let's get into some of those headlines, Mac. And the LSU Lane Kiffin saga continues to roll along, as you all know by now. What a game last night. Ole Miss and Georgia, as Ole Miss advances to come out here to Phoenix, to the Glendale area, the west side of Phoenix, to take on Miami in the Fiesta Bowl in one of the semifinals. And the Lane Kiffin situation still hangs over their head as the assistants, the group of assistants that were permitted to go back to Ole Miss and coach them through this college football playoff run, or so we thought, The cloud still hangs over. Sources told ESPN on Thursday night that it remained unclear how many Ole Miss assistants who are joining Kiffin at LSU will be allowed to remain with the Rebels when they face number 10 Miami, as we just said, in the Fiesta Bowl on Thursday night. Offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr., tight ends coach and co-offensive coordinator Joe Cox, wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator George McDonald, and running backs coach Kevin Smith have all signed contracts to coach with Kiffin at LSU. As Mac mentioned, the transfer portal is open as of today in the second single dumbest damn thing we do in college football. 4,000 players in this portal. And now it's going to be interesting to see if these guys get to stick around and coach with Ole Miss going through, because their new jobs essentially started at 12:01 last night. Kiffin hangs over Ole Miss still, Mac, and it's, what about the kids in the situation here?
Yeah, this is really weird. This whole thing is weird. I mean, if there was ever a chance for us to kind of look at college football and try to figure it out, this is where we got to kind of start to draw the line. I mean, I know we probably um, Dan Lanning had some good points, and I know we've probably all heard them, and I'm going to kind of bring them up. I mean, number one, why aren't we listening to the guys who actually are in the field?
No
You know,
shit,
let's
right?
listen. Let's just listen to the coaches. His bottom line was this: play through December, have January 1st be the national championship game, and then move on. I mean, even if you are one of these teams that won and are continuing, how much time can you actually put into the team that you're looking at for next year? I mean, you still have a job at hand. It just, again, let's just listen to the coaches. I mean, honestly, they're the ones who are in it. They usually have the best ideas. We saw one from Chip Kelly, this one from Dan Lanning. I think he's right on. I mean, I love everything that he said. But this whole thing at LSU with Kiffin, I'm like, what are these kids? What more do these kids have to do? I mean, now they've gone out, they won a big game, and now you're going to take the coaches away from them. It just, none of it sits well. None of it's a bad look for college football. Is what it is.
Yeah, it really is. And an Ole Miss source confirmed to ESPN, quote, there are going to be some fireworks. We always knew this might be a possibility. Kiffin told ESPN on Friday morning, everything has been extremely clear and transparent between myself and Pete Golding through constant communication, including a plan all the way through this historic championship run, Kiffin told ESPN. What an amazing night for the Ole Miss players, coaches, and fans. People questioned whether or not Lane would actually be at the game last night. He wasn't because he was busy. And I don't know, because I saw the highlights of this. That's Lane Kiffin and LSU women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey at LSU's women's basketball game last night. A great game between LSU and Kentucky on the hardwood. And I don't get the hand-holding thing here. It threw me for a loop. Like, is Lane being forced to do this, like, against his will? Do we need to be concerned for Lane in this picture? Kim Mulkey, as we know, is quite the demonstrative coach on the sideline, so perfect marriage of coaches there, if you will, at LSU. But, like, I didn't get the... And she held his hand all the way out to, like, meet the other coaches like she does customary when she makes her grand poobah entrance onto the floor. Kiffin was not at the game last night because he was at LSU and getting the troops all rallied up. And this is going to be interesting because, according to what Kiffin's told ESPN, it sounds like there's a contingency plan in place. It sounds like they're going to stay in their roles with Ole Miss, and I hope they are because it's a fantastic story. At the same time, I can't blame anybody involved in this situation because, as the Ole Miss source told ESPN, we always knew this was going to be a possibility. And I think for what's right for the program, they should be able to stay. I don't think, from what I'm gathering from Kiffin's comments here, that it sounds like it's really on Kiffin's side. It's more of a, hey, how committed to the bit can you be? I'm interested to see how this plays out, and I'm interested to see how it impacts Ole Miss on this magical run as they go against a team who's on another equally as magical run in Miami, doing it entirely on the defensive side of the ball. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that game, but this thing's still hanging out. And Mac, you mentioned it, with the portal opening. And today, and we're not talking about minor names here. If you haven't seen it
No.
by now, Rocco Beck especially is expected to sign a deal to follow Matt Campbell to Penn State to be their new quarterback. Brendan Sorsby, who's considered the top portal quarterback, formerly at Cincinnati, he is going to visit Texas Tech and LSU, so a team that we just saw bounced out of the college football playoff, and obviously LSU, who we were just talking about. We've got obviously DJ Lagway's in the portal. Sam Levitt's been tagged with a no contact in the portal. Not surprised there. And NC State's retaining their quarterback, CJ Bailey, which I know they're excited about. So a lot of quarterback news as we are here, not even 12 hours into this thing being open. And you hit the nail right on the head, Mac. Why are we not listening to the people in the middle? Why do we have a guy like Nick Saban, the greatest to ever do it on College Game Day, telling you how to fix this, but the people that make the decisions are too damn stupid to figure it out?
Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever. Again, it's where, unfortunately, it's where college sports are going at this point. We've got too many people who are. I mean, honestly, it's about the money. It's about how are they getting the money in. I mean, that's what it's all about with college sports right now. For no help of the kid. I mean, these kids are just going to do. I don't blame the athletes. The athletes are just doing what is what is there in front of them. I mean, this is the system they've been given, and so they're going to follow the system. It's the system that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely does. Couple more headlines to pass on before we get into those games from last night and then get ready for a huge weekend in the NFL. And we finally got an answer to one of the Japanese players who was floating out there. Ace Tatsuya Imai and the Astros agree to a 3-year deal, which I think puts even more, not that we're surprised about this, even more the writing on the wall that Framber Valdez will not be back in Houston. Houston does something and gets help for Hunter Brown at the top side of that rotation here. So we weren't sure if this was going to happen. 3 years, $54 million, could be worth up to $63 million. The contract terms were first reported by MLB Network. It does include some opt-outs. He's 27 right now, and this is a big move for the Astros. But the catch always with these pitchers that come over from Japan is how do they translate right away to Major League Baseball? And we use the Dodgers as a prime example with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who a lot of people would probably consider a top 5 pitcher in all of baseball right now, but we've also seen the struggles of a guy like Roki Sasaki. I'm interesting to see how this one translates for the Astros looking to get back at the top of the AL West.
It's a good deal for the Astros because it's not a lot of money, and that's kind of been the theme of the off season for baseball. These two names so far that have come over from Japan have not gotten anywhere near the money that was first reported that they're going to get. There's one more major signing out there, Okamoto, rumored to start having some meetings. I believe his window closes on Monday or Tuesday coming up. But he's an interesting he's an infielder, and probably I think the better of the three. So it's going to be interesting to see. But these Japanese players did not get anywhere near the money that kind of was expected of them, and it's kind of been the way so far. I mean, it's very interesting to me. Everyone says once these guys sign, it's going to open everything else up. But I just look. I mean, you have heard nothing about Tucker, nothing about Bellinger. And I mean, at all, and even Valdez, like nothing about these guys, and we're about 40 days out from spring training.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but yeah, we're that damn close to it. And you know, a lot of baseball moves have gone on, and obviously we've been on minimally with all the holiday breaks here. But interesting, the Oakland A's, Sacramento A's, Las Vegas A's, whatever the hell we're supposed to refer to them as, continue to spend money, and they signed a deal with Tyler Soderstrom, the richest deal in club history, 86-year, 7-year, $86 million contract. The richest deal in team history, includes club option for an 8th season and bonus provisions that could increase the value to $131 million. Interesting about this one, they announced it in Las Vegas. He got a tour of the stadium site, went to the A's experience. The A's continue to make moves, and it's a team that obviously, you know, has always been critiqued for being a cheap ass organization. And they've really, going back to last season, really started to sign deals like they intend, at least on the surface, to keep a lot of their core players there. The 5-year contract with Brent Rooker, the 7-year deal with Lawrence Butler, Mark Kotze signed an extension. They go out and agree to a 1-year deal with Mark Leiter Jr. I mean, the A's spending some money here, and we talked about this. This is a really, on paper, this is a really exciting lineup on paper. They need pitching help, as do many teams in Major League Baseball. The Leiter deal is a good one for them. About $3 million. He was non-tendered by the Yankees. Had a rough year last year. I like the move for them. I like to see them spending money. But again, the caveat, as we know, Mac, with the A's is always how many of these guys are actually going to stick around for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few years before they get to Vegas. I like how they're going about this from an offensive standpoint because the offense is going to travel no matter what. We don't know how that stadium's going to play. I mean, um, there is a ballpark up in Summerlin, but this is in a totally different area of Las Vegas where this ballpark is, being downtown. We don't know how things are going to go, and it's also going to be a covered stadium as well, and so they haven't had that in Vegas, and so I think they're smart not to look at pitching at this point because they don't know how this stadium is going to play. They don't know what type of pitcher I think they're going to need to be successful there. So I like the way that they're going at this. Like you said, the bats are going to travel no matter where you go, but holding off on the pitching, I think. I mean, got to give credit where credit is due. They're moving in the right direction. They've got now a good young pool of players. So when they finally do, if they keep them, move into Vegas, something that they can build this team around and get excited because we know those first 3 or 4 years are throwaway years because people are going to just go no matter what because it's Vegas, it's new and whatnot. So they've got a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still, as we sit here in this baseball offseason, waiting for all the big chips to fall. A couple other deals that have gone on in the past couple of days. The Cubs and reliever Hunter Harvey agreed to a 1-year deal. The Reds, speaking of the A's, the Reds signed outfielder J.J. Bleday to a 1-year, $1.4 million contract. The Marlins make a trade for former AL stolen base, speaking of the A's, champion Esteri Ruiz. And the Angels, speaking of cast-off relievers and reloading former Dodger relievers, they agreed to a 1-year deal with veteran reliever Kirby Yates. Who's the first big name, Mac, that you think drops in this? We know we've got Tucker, Bregman, Belly. We're hearing some stuff about Bregman possibly coming to the Diamondbacks, and we're just waiting for that 1 year. I think there's two things in play here, and that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on who the first big chip that will fall. You mentioned it with the Japanese players not getting the money that they thought they were going to originally get in a lot of these deals. I wonder if the looming possible work stoppage hanging in the balance here has something to do with the length and terms that some of these teams are willing to commit to. So of those big name guys, who do you think is the first chip that finally falls as we still await a really big deal here?
I think it's Alex Bregman. I think only because we've heard so much about him. The last thing that I saw earlier today is that the Red Sox made an aggressive offer for him. That's what they said. I think he's the first one that goes. Honestly, I mean, I think I don't really. I mean, I know the Diamondbacks could be in play. That would be a big move for the D-backs. They could really use a third baseman. I think it's really between Toronto and Boston, though. I think Boston kind of is controlling the stick right now, if you will. I see in which way they want to go. Do they want to go to Bregman, who they know, who was great in the clubhouse and was just, I mean, it was good for them in the field, or do they want to go to Bichette? And I mean, I think that's what they're trying to deal with right now. If it was, I think the Red Sox end up with Bregman. I think there's too much smoke there.
Yeah, something definitely to keep an eye on because usually around Christmas we start to get some of those big deals. So we'll see what ends up happening. Did you like the Four Nations face-off early this year? Because if you did, well, the U.S. roster that they're sending to the Olympics is essentially almost the exact same roster. The only ones not back on the U.S. Olympic hockey roster from the Four Nations are Anaheim Ducks forward Chris Kreider, defenseman Adam Fox, also not on the roster here. It's an interesting group that was put together. I was a little shocked to see that Jason Robertson was not included on it. He's having a hell of a year. Cole Caulfield, Alex DeBrincat, there were some guys I don't think you can complain about the roster. Your forwards, Matt Boldy, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Jake Gunsel, Jack Hughes, Clayton Keller, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Brock Nelson, Tage Thompson, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, and Vincent Trocheck. Those are your forwards. I like the mix here. I can't make a case for anybody like I think that got massively snubbed, if you will. I think leaving Robertson off was a little interesting to me, but I can't argue with the group that they put together.
No, and that was the group that, almost won the whole thing last year. So, I mean, there's no reason not to think that, they couldn't do it this year. I have a snub for you, but it's on the Canadian side. I was a little disappointed that they didn't pick Seth Jarvis. I know it's a little bit of a homer move being from the Hurricanes, and I know he's hurt right now, but he's having a phenomenal year. I was surprised he was left off the Team Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we know the four nations definitely generated some momentum for the NHL last year. So I'm interested to see how this plays at the Olympics. Your defensemen for the U.S. team to round out the roster here: Brock Faber, Noah Hannafin, Quinn Hughes, Seth Jones, Charlie McAvoy, Jake Sanderson, Jacob Slavin, and Zach Werenski. Your goaltenders: Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman.
Of course, I think the greatest sporting event in my life was the 1980 Olympic hockey team victory. I would like at some point. I mean, I'd like to see it go back to it won't, but to the colleges. I mean, college hockey is so much different now than it was, back in 1980. But I think it would be fun to see. We see it a little bit with the juniors, but I think it would be fun to roll it out one more time with the colleges, just to kind of see what it would be like, especially internationally. I mean, internationally, these guys play a lot as well. So I don't know. It'd be kind of fun. It's fun with the pros, but I miss it being with the colleges.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along. Get as many of them up on the air as we can. College football playoff. We're down to the last day of bowl season, Mac, and we'll get into all of that here as we move forward. But I had to share this picture because the person
Great.
who decided to put the fake bowl of Frosted Flakes in the end zone at the Sun Bowl, which was a fantastic game on New Year's Eve, if you got a chance to watch it, back and forth between ASU and Duke. The image of all bowl season and the image of what is right in bowl season here, it was nice to see the referees in this game also kind of let the kids have some fun with it. That's what bowl season's all about. Obviously today we've got the Duke's Mayo Bowl, so some unlucky coach in that game is going to get a bucket of mayo dumped on his head. But these are the things that are right in bowl season as we wind down to the end of it. But let's get into the college football playoff games. And it started on New Year's Eve. And as much as I have given this guy crap for his jackass antics on the sideline, I don't know who did this, so I apologize. If you're watching and you did it, feel free to take credit. But Friday night it started with the definition of belt to ass by the Miami Hurricanes as they beat Ohio State. Obviously, AI can do some really interesting things, a lot of stupid things. If you've seen any of these AI predicting your next 60 Super Bowl champions, and it's got teams that aren't even in the league yet. This was a good one, and I think very appropriate because it really kind of just put the game in proper perspective, because Ohio State was never really in this game despite the game getting a little tight at the end. They were behind the eight ball from the jump. And first things first here, we all have to eat a giant plate of crow because we were all thinking that Ohio State was way too much in this game. And I also got to give Carson Beck some credit. Carson Beck has thrown 12 touchdowns and 1 interception since that loss to SMU. And we give him crap for making some real just dumb decisions a lot of the time. He is playing really good football right now. And when you have a defense as good as the Hurricanes that can go in and just flat dominate like they have and go on this run, the Hurricanes move on to the Fiesta Bowl out here, and they're playing as good a football as anybody right now.
Yeah, I was looking back in my notes, and the one thing that I highlighted was that, and we showed it in one of our clips from the other day, Ohio State against the two teams that played really good defense, and that was Texas and Indiana. And they scored 14 points against Texas, 10 against Indiana, and then 14 against Miami. So the struggle was real for Ohio State when they played top quality defensive teams, their offense was not able to match those defenses. So, we also said if Miami was going to win, it was going to be a low scoring game. And for the most part, I mean, it kind of was. I mean, they got a little bit of a touchdown late, and they didn't make any mistakes. And that was the main thing. You kept texting back and forth a little bit, like, okay, here comes that interception. Here's where Beck's gonna. It never happened. And like you said, he played exceptional. So Miami did the things that they had to do. They played great defense. They didn't make mistakes, and they really did not allow Ohio State to get going on offense. A lot of things you can throw out there. Day calling the plays. Did that have anything to do with it? It was a different, calling. I mean, who knows? But hats off to Miami. And again, I've said it. I think I said it in one of the videos too. Is like we have to remember this is a Miami team that at one point in the season was considered a number one team in the country. So I mean, yeah, they had kind of a okay season, but it's not like this is a bad football team. They had a couple of bad weeks.
No, and we said it when we were breaking down the game the other day, and we went to our predictions, and I literally said, if they don't get a defensive touchdown, I don't see how Miami is going to be able to,
Right.
to do this. And so, if anything, it was probably my fault. Keontae Scott's 72-yard pick six that gave the
Ugh.
Hurricanes a 14 to nothing lead. And really, I mean, again, as we said, Ohio State did get back into the game, especially late a little bit, but that was kind of the play that swung the thing. And I'll continue to eat crow here because if we go back in the archives to, I think it was after they handled Florida State, and obviously as we look back at it, at the end of the season, beating Florida State wasn't that great of an accomplishment. But we did a show, and I said, as much as it pains me to say this, and as much as I hate to admit it, I will be an unbiased broadcaster, if you will, here, and say this that because of the way I said Miami was back. And the reason that I said
Mhm.
Miami was back was because of how their defense played. And I just mentioned that stat about Carson Beck off the top and what he's done since the SMU game. And I think what happened to me was he started playing so bad for that stretch of 3 or 4 games there where he was
Mhm.
the Carson Beck that we anticipate seeing, the dumbass decisions. What are you looking at? That kind of stuff. And I think it clouded my judgment on how good their defense was. And we're seeing that. And I think if you look
Mhm.
at this right now and you take the seeding off of it and you look at these 4 teams that are left, Miami's got as good a shot as anybody to win this thing because of how good that defense is. For Ohio State, I saw this stat blew my mind this morning. And of course, like normal, I can't find it in my notes here, but uh, this is the second time in Ohio State's history, their huge history in college football, that they've lost 2 games in 5 consecutive seasons. And it's like the first time it's happened in like, I don't remember the exact year, but it's like 75 years. I mean, you think about that. 2 games in one season is like a holy shit, it's happened 5 years in a row. This is unacceptable. And then today I see some of the idiots that want to take it a step further and go, well, is Ryan Day, should he be on the hot seat? He just won a friggin' national championship. Calm down, people. The Big Ten, which is clearly the dominant conference in this college football playoff, but they got punched in the mouth and they weren't ready to play. And I think this kind of goes back to something you said off the top, and we'll talk about my guy Dan Lanning here in a second because his Ducks moved on. But he was talking about that game and how it should have been in Lubbock, and he was very happy that they didn't have to play it in Lubbock. And now that we know after everything we saw yesterday, Mac, those teams getting the bye are 1-7 now in 2 years of the college football playoff. And I think the lack of home field does have something to do with that because I don't think Miami wins this game as great as they played in Columbus. I just don't.
Yeah, what's going to happen is I think because of what we've seen in these quarterfinals over the last 2 years, it's going to do two things that I don't know that. Well, one thing I should say, not two. I don't think it's going to change. The bowl games are going to stay the bowl games. Unfortunately, as I said, there's too much money to be lost from it. But what I do think it's going to bring us to 16 teams, and I just think that's what it's going to do because having that by having in essence a month off of not playing football. I mean, think about that from any other aspect. Let's just take hockey since we're in hockey season.
Hmm.
You win your division and you get a bye in the first round, and so you don't play another hockey game for a month. I mean,
Hmm.
that makes no sense whatsoever. You know, the other quote that I thought was kind of good, it came from Carson Beck when he was talking about how his team is in there at 5 o'clock in the morning and they stay until 6 o'clock at night, and people wanted to know, well, when are you going to class?
Exactly.
I was like, well,
Exactly.
we need to get over that. They're not there to go to school. Remember
Haven't been
that a
going.
lot of them.
I'm not here to play school. One of the best
I'm
quotes
not here.
of bowl season all time. You know, it
So
is though. I mean, it's exactly that, and especially with transfers, and we'll talk obviously about Trinidad Chambliss. He might be back at Ole Miss next year. I don't know if that's going to be his wisest choice in this year's quarterback class in the draft. I think he's a guy that's really set up to cash in if he doesn't get that waiver to get that 6 year. But now we know Miami moves on. Now we know we have to see Michael Irvin more. I really wanted to see the Indiana Oregon matchup in the Fiesta Bowl because I think that rematch is going to be ridiculous. And we've talked about this in something that I've said all year on this program. I don't think people are putting enough stock into how good Oregon's defense is. And if you had any questions of that, you saw it in the Orange Bowl as Dan Lanning's Ducks shut out Texas Tech 23 to nothing. Mateo Uiagalelei with the strip sack fumble that really kind of changed the game early. Freshman Brandon Finney Jr., 3 takeaways, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery in that 23 nothing win. Jordan Davison, again, great on the ground for the Ducks. Dante Moore, 234 yards, and Atticus Sappington, kicker for the Ducks, 3 field goals. And now they play Indiana in a rematch in the Peach Bowl in the semifinal. This Oregon defense, man, it's not something you usually put 2 and 2 together with when you're talking about Oregon, but this Oregon defense is as good as any of these defenses left.
yeah, that was very impressive. I mean, Baron Morton had, I think, thrown only 4 or 5 interceptions the entire season, and I mean, as dominant as the Miami defense was against Ohio State, Oregon was tenfold dominant. I mean, Texas Tech, they they couldn't get anything going. I mean, at all. They couldn't get a running game going. They couldn't get their passing game going. They had no protection. That was is about as totally dominant a game. I was a little concerned though in that first half when Oregon twice didn't kick field goals and got stopped on fourth down. I'm thinking, oh man, it's going to take. And then like after one of them, Texas Tech went down and had a big play, and I'm like, that's going to be that could be very deflating if Texas Tech goes in and scores here. But Texas Tech just too many mistakes. You can't in these games, in these playoff games, you can't make that many mistakes and think that you're going to win a game. And they just it was mistake after mistake for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, and Texas Tech came into the game second nationally in points per game at 42 and a half, fifth nationally in yards at 480.3 per game. Literally got nothing going. Turned the ball over 4 times. Stopped on fourth downs 3 other times. Had 4 3-and-outs. As you mentioned, Baron Morton 18 of 32 for 137 yards.
Yes.
And that strip from Uiagalelei was, I mean, a hell of a play to come in and make the pressure, and then just said, no, this is my ball. And, Oregon now has a chance, if they can knock off Indiana in the Peach Bowl, to return to the scene of the crime, if you will, yesterday and play in this national championship game, which is on that exact same field on January 19th. And I think you saw in that game, we talked about this. These are the two teams that have probably understood the changing game and the narrative of how to build a college football team in this day and age better than any other teams in the country. And I think Texas Tech will be there for the long haul as far as being a factor in the Big 12 and a factor on the national stage because they do have it right. Oregon, on the flip side, we know that they've had it right for a long time here. And I wonder how much of a motivating factor, and you heard some of Dan Lanning's comments to his team after the game about leaving a bag here to get back here in the next 2 weeks. They've got a tall task in front of them and a good Indiana team who beat them at Autzen Stadium. And we'll get into Indiana here in just a second. But, just an absolutely flat dominating performance from Oregon. And if Oregon's offense can get out of this kind of funk they've been in over the last month and pair that with this defense, I think they're as scary as anybody for Texas Tech. How do you go forward here? Again, I think they're going to be just fine. They handled the portal masterfully this year. They've already got Brendan Sorsby for a visit right away. They're going to reload very quickly and be a factor here, but you can't be anything but impressed with this Ducks team.
No, absolutely not. And they can continue to do it. And like you said, you've been on the trumpet for their defense the entire year, so I give you credit for that. But it's interesting. You watch these games, and the thing that came to my mind was, if I'm a coach and I'm going into program A, how do I get how do I get my team to be successful early on? I think it's from a defensive standpoint. I think you build a incredible defense, and then you kind of go from there. I don't think it's build the offense first and then the defense. I think you're starting to see these teams dominated three of the four games. It was the defense that not only set the tone, they controlled the football game. And so it'd be interesting to see. We know football's kind of a, one team do it. We see everybody kind of do it. It'd be interesting to see how teams go about building their teams, because I use that word meaningfully, building, because that's what college football is about now. How do you build your team? I want to see if teams start trying to build it more from a defensive standpoint than an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, and much like the NFL is a copycat league, we're starting to see that, because let's call college football what it is. The AAA of the NFL is what it's turned
Right.
into, and it'll be interesting to see how that stuff goes forward. We're obviously going to hear a bunch of news about players changing locations, if you will, over the next couple of days here. The Rose Bowl was non-existent as far as quality of the game. Alabama never in it. TJ mentioned this when he was talking about his keys to the game, and Alabama could not have a slow start. They did exactly that. Goes into halftime 17-0 Alabama. Alabama fans going, okay, we've been in the 17-0 kind of 17-point deficit hole before. We've got this. And I think every time I've watched Indiana, especially over the last handful of games since they went into Autzen, and that was the game you could really tell, okay, this team really is for real here. And I think when I saw them yesterday and watching the game yesterday, it's like, oh, shit. I knew already, and we all knew. I mean, Indiana this year on the ground averages 5.4 yards a carry as a team. They have 31 rushing touchdowns. But the 1-2 punch of Roman Hemby and Kalen Black, I don't think gets the credit that they deserve. These guys together are averaging 5.5 yards a carry, 1,800 yards on the season. They were fantastic yesterday, as was Fernando Mendoza, who didn't put up monster stat numbers because he really didn't have to. 14-16, 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this is a dude that plays with all kinds of quiet swagger, and he's an absolute freaking character. I swear to God, when you hear him in a post-game interview, and the jokes have been flying around since yesterday, he always looks right at the camera. It sounds like he's said his post-game interview to himself in the mirror 100 times. He's a guy I could see selling you an extended warranty for anything in life. He's also a really damn good quarterback that makes a lot of smart decisions, and he is tough as hell.
Yeah, I mean, can we just say that? I mean, Indiana kind of put a stamp on what I think. They are the best team going this year. I mean, let's just be honest with that. I mean, without a doubt. I said this was going to be about which quarterback could figure out what the other team was going to do defensively, because they were both going to try to disguise things from a defensive standpoint. And Indiana just tore that up. I mean, Coach Signetti is amazing. I mean, he's brought go back, and they showed it. His opening press conference. He says, "I'm a winner."
Google
Damn
it.
straight.
Google me.
Yeah, damn straight, dude. Damn straight you are. You basically took it. I mean, I kind of joke, but it's kind of like an Xbox game. You go Xbox, play college football. You always take like the worst football team.
Hmm.
Oh, who would that be? That would be Indiana. And you try to build them up to be national championship. Damn guy did it in real life. I
Yeah,
mean,
and he's so like just smooth about it too. You saw the post game when they were presenting the trophies and stuff, and Reese Davis mentions basically what you just did, and he goes, what do you have to say about it? And he just in the Signetti smile, he goes, man, it'd make one hell of a movie, wouldn't it? Like so cool, so calm, so collected,
yeah.
and it really shows Indiana's dominance when you look at the team stats. And I talk about it a lot on the Friday show on Lunchtime Live here. Usually after a Thursday night football game, there's one section of the stat sheet in the NFL I always look at. No matter what I thought the game was, there's one section that always tells me everything. In college football, I don't think you need to go to the same spot. Total yards, 407, 193 for Indiana. Alabama with the one turnover, the play that ended the season for Ty Simpson. First downs, they doubled them up 22-11. Penalties, there was 2 accepted penalties for a total of 15 yards. Alabama on third down, 3-11. Alabama on fourth down, 0 for 2. Time of possession, only a 9-minute difference. So this was a game that was relatively clean, and Indiana was just the better football team from the get. And defensively, we knew Indiana was really good defensively, and I think the decision making of Fernando Mendoza is why you're seeing a lot of teams going, hey, in the quarterback class that we have this year, this guy's the best of the best. Like, he reminds me of, here we go, I know what you're going to say. I don't have my rose-colored 49er glasses to put on. He reminds me a lot of Brock Purdy. He's a guy that can make plays outside of the pocket. He's tougher than you think he is, but he's a really, really smart quarterback who makes the right decision. He makes the good throws. He's not afraid to throw the ball away. He's not afraid to just drop down and take a sack where need be. I mean, he doesn't make mistakes. And when you've got a defense that damn good and an offense that doesn't make any mistakes, it's the most lethal of all combos. I think especially in today's version of college football.
Yeah, he's that quarterback that I was kind of telling you about, like kind of like Drake May. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of a little bit of an old school. He's comfortable in the pocket. He's not a run first quarterback. He makes great decisions, but if he has to run, he can run. And I mean, he's very very impressive. Be interesting to see on the flip side what happens with Alabama now, because this was a really, I mean, it was kind of a tough year for the Tide. It really was, and so I'll be interested to see how they rebound from this. I mean, there's still going to be a national championship talk, I'm sure, next year, but I don't think overall the diehard fans, especially the ones we know, are going to be very happy with what they saw on that field.
Yeah, and they've got some interesting decisions. When Herb was on with us talking about this game, he was expecting and hoping for that big game out of Ryan Williams. What happens with Ryan Williams? Does Ty Simpson decide to leave and enter the draft in a weaker quarterback class where he's probably a higher draft pick? Does he need more polishing? A lot of people, after seeing what they saw yesterday, would say yes. But it'll be interesting to see how that part lays out and what does happen for Alabama going forward here. We know they're losing their wide receivers coach to Oregon State. There's going to be some turnover there. Obviously, as we know in college football, especially with today being the day that the portal was open, it's been open for 12 hours now in reloading that roster. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to get finger pointed at him a lot, and that comes with being the head coach. It especially comes with being the head coach at Alabama. And I would say give him time. I mean, if you look at it from last year to this year, it is a progression. I know that's not the Alabama standard, but I also think that we need to, if you're an Alabama fan, you kind of have to tweak the standard a little bit here and let Kalen DeBoer grow his program the way Kalen DeBoer wants to grow that program, which by his track record is very successful.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, you have to understand that they still, made it to the playoffs, and sometimes, we've seen this. Sometimes you just got to tip your hat. Sometimes the team is just better than you, and let's just be honest. This Indiana team was better than Alabama. They've been better than everybody they played. I mean, goes without saying, they haven't lost yet this year. So I mean, I really don't take too much from that loss. If I'm an Alabama fan, again tip your hat when the time is due. And listen, this is a team that's going for a conference three-peat. Let's look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the final game last night, we got the best game of the quarterfinal round. Ole Miss knocks off Georgia 39 to 34 in a game that Georgia had every opportunity coming into the start of the second half to really extend what was a 21-12 halftime lead. And Ole Miss's defense turned it up in the second half and made life a living hell physically and literally on Gunnar Stockton in the second half of that game.
Oh,
We talk about the toughness of Ty Simpson and we talk about the toughness of Fernando Mendoza. Gunnar Stockton, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes last night because he was getting his ass knocked around like a friggin' rag doll by that Ole Miss defense last night. And just that one hit, we had the family over last night because of the plague that's been rolling through the house. So we did Christmas kind of last night while that game was on, and we're opening presents and all that stuff. And he makes that pass play, and I'm like, holy. And I've always had this eye, and it's weird because you and I had this discussion last week, and we were on opposite sides of that Texas A&M Miami game. And I've always had this eye for like the defensive side of the football, even though I'd rather see offensive football played. And when he threw that ball and got hit, up in the upper chest, the whiplash on his head, and I'm like, ah, man. And then Frazier goes down, and I'm like, what the hell is Gunnar Stockton doing back out here? And then he gets cracked like 3 or 4 more times after this. This Ole Miss defense went in at halftime. They made the adjustments that they had to, and we saw a 30-point fourth quarter in this game. This was a fantastic football game.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it offered everything we had. And kudos to Ole Miss. I mean, remember they had Georgia. I don't think it was a few weeks ago, but they had Georgia beat. That's a game that they should have won. And I think you go back and look at it. I think that in a lot of ways gave them a lot of confidence, knowing that this is a team that they could probably stay with. And Georgia, as we know, got off to a Georgia start, really really slow, and I think that kind of helped Ole Miss gain their
What was my text
moment.
message? Here we go again from
Here
Georgia.
we go. Yeah, but I went back and one of my highlights was Trinidad Chambliss is dangerous if he gets hot, and boy oh boy did he get hot. Hot's not even the word. I mean to use that was I mean I mean the defense was good, but let me tell you some of the plays that he made. You want to talk about checking your stock after a game. He might want to check his NFL stock after this game because I am sure it's a lot different than it was before the game.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about that here in just a second, but like I can't stress this point enough. In speaking of both quarterbacks last night, both of these guys were being hunted last night and
Oh,
made plays under pressure. And I think for the casuals that might not have watched the game, excuse me, or turned it off because I was dragging ass. Like I was struggling to stay awake through this one. I definitely realized that I'm in my mid 40s now, not my mid 30s on New Year's Eve because I was up way too friggin' long. So I was struggling to get through this one, but both of these guys, and if you're a casual and you just looked at the box score, maybe you turned the game off early, you went to bed. Some people had to work today. Stockton only threw for 203 yards and 1 touchdown. He did run for 2 scores, and so if you just looked at that, these two guys, they were being hunted all night, and I never thought of Trinidad Chambliss from an NFL standpoint before last night. And some of the throws he made, especially on the drive that put them in the lead down the stretch, rolling to his right, dropping it in the bucket, like the plays that he made last night. And I looked at him and I went, here again, I'm seeing the same. I see the same guy I see in Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, I think Trinidad Chambliss is a little better on the move and can make more plays than Mendoza with his legs. But again, these are guys in both of the quarterbacks last night. So Stockton, Chambliss, Mendoza, they're all in that kind of Drew Brees, kind of Brock Purdy type of quarterback, a little undersized, more athletic than you think, can make plays. And that one throw he made down the sideline,
oh
and I
yes.
can't remember exactly who it was to. I want to say it was Harrison Wallace. It might have been Stribling. Both of them had great games, but I started going, okay, we know the quarterback class is, at least on paper, not very hyped. It doesn't have your big name, your Arch Mannings, guys like that. But I'm looking at like a guy like Trinidad Chambliss and going, he might not be a guy you go get to start with the intent of starting him right away, but he's the guy I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers going after if Aaron Rodgers were to come back for another year. And you know how I feel about Will Howard. I think they
Hmm.
might have a guy for the long haul there. But I'm looking at him going, there's a lot of teams that could take him in with the intent of being a backup, and he'd probably be like a kind of, and I have to use Purdy in this example because he's like kind of the newest one that came in. We didn't expect anything and can really rally a team to a late season run. Where would you put him as far as kind of thinking about the draft? If he, and we know he's trying to get that waiver to come back for a 6 year, but I wonder, like you said, if there is a conversation maybe somewhere in the back channels as he's focused on what they're doing, is maybe you might want to think about this in this year's draft class.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned that pass down the sideline because they came right back after that and he almost threw an interception on the same
Yeah.
thing that and it was kind of like you saw the both things. I think NFL people would say, "Oh my gosh, look at his athleticism," and "Oh my gosh, his decision making is still." To me, I mean, you have to remember that this is a guy. This is his first year playing, college football at this Division 1 level as well. So he doesn't have even the experience. I mean, he played at the lower levels, and so for him to come in, remember he wasn't a starter at the beginning of the year. He got that through, unfortunately, from an injury, and he stepped in and did a magnificent job. I think you're right though. If I'm an NFL team, I don't think he's a guy that I would want to put, you know, as a New York Jets quarterback or anything like that. I think it's somewhere where he can go and learn a year or two and kind of develop.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, I mean, I'm interested to see this because I can't wait to see this year's draft because Shadur Sanders isn't in the draft, so I don't know what Mel Kiper's going to do with his time. But if we wanted to look at this from Mel Kiper's positional rankings, if you're wondering where maybe Trinidad Chambliss would fit, he has him six at quarterbacks ahead of him, Dante Moore. Obviously, we know with Dante Moore, the upside is the athleticism and just the raw talent. Fernando Mendoza, 2, Ty Simpson, 3, John Mateer, 4, Carson Beck, 5, Trinidad Chambliss, 6, Nussmeyer, Allen, Pavia, and Talon Green from Arkansas, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor. That rounds out the list. If you're making a decision in an NFL circle, Mac, and you're one of those teams that knows the importance of the value of a backup quarterback. I think we can't say enough about the job that Mac Jones did for the 49ers this year. We've seen it over the past couple of years, these backup quarterbacks that have to come in and get the job done. Where would you put Trinidad Chambliss on your list? Like, give me a team right now off the top of your head here that you'd go, we got a quarterback, he's good, this, that, the other thing, but this guy really is a guy that maybe could be a starter. Take like kind of the late round Brock Purdy type approach. I have a team I think he'd be perfect on. Where would you put Trinidad Chambliss if you were in the decision making position for an NFL team? And if you can think of a team outside of saying the Cleveland Browns, because we have a moratorium on associating the Browns to any damn quarterback. There should be a rule they can only hoard so many of them. Where would you put Trinidad?
I just kind of taking a small peek. I think a good spot for him would be the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, you son of a
I,
bitch. You stole my thunder.
did I? Okay, I take that back.
No,
Um,
I think that's
no,
actually no.
no.
Tell me exactly why you think the Rams, because I'm curious to see if it's for the same reason I do.
Well, my point is, they always have a good offensive scheme. You have a quarterback there that's going to be there for another year or so, a couple of years that he can learn under. I can also see him in a scheme where you can use him in some third and fourth down, not a tush push kind of a thing, but just something that would be a little bit different. And the Rams are like that. They come up with some creative stuff from an offensive standpoint. I think that would be good. My second pick, the other one I was going to say in a division, I thought would be the Cardinals. I think I mean, you got Jacoby Brissett there. Let him go another year or so, and I think that would be a good spot for him.
And we will talk about the Cardinals and the quarterback position and the direction, because we are going to talk about some head coaches, because the next time we will be on is in our customary Tuesday spot, which is, of course, after what we refer to in the NFL as Black Monday. So as far as draft prospects, obviously way too early ahead of time, but as we're seeing some of these guys bow out of the college football playoffs and as the transfer window is open and guys are going to start moving. If you're wondering, again, this is Kuiper's big board, your top 10 guys. Dante Moore, number 1. Fernando Mendoza, number 2. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, number 3. Arvell Reese from Ohio State, 4. Francis Moaga, the offensive tackle, the big road grader for Miami. 2,400 snaps at right tackle. He is not going to be on the board very long. David Bailey, the outside linebacker from Texas Tech. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. Kenyon Sadiq, who you know how much I love Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. He's 8th. Carnell Tate, 9th from Ohio State. And Makai Lemon from USC, 10th. Those are on Mel Kiper's big board there. Yeah, Makai Lemon. This isn't the greatest quarterback draft, which I think actually makes the draft better. And there's a lot of teams. And last week, on our last Tuesday on our show, we talked about the Bills and how deplorable I think it is for the Bills to not have a number 1 wide receiver for Josh Allen. And we know the Bills are not going to be in a position to be towards the top of the board where you could get a guy who maybe has the potential to be a number 1 wide receiver, like a Jordan Tyson, like a Carnell Tate, a Makai Lemon type guy. It's going to be interesting to see how some of those guys go. Before we transition off of college football here, Mac, now that we know the 4 semifinalists, and these are games that will start taking place on Thursday and Friday of next week. So 1 game Thursday, 1 game Friday. So for those of you that, get sad at this time of year, we have no Monday night football and no Thursday night football. We still got your fix for you here. Thursday night, it'll be a 7:30 Eastern kick from here in Arizona. Tickets as low as, to take Vegas Max Ticket Tuesday here, tickets as low as $149 for number 10 Miami and number 6 Ole Miss. That's your semifinal game Thursday. And then on Friday night, we'll move on over to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the Peach Bowl. Number 5 Oregon, number 1 Indiana. I think, and Scott Van Pelt said this last night on SportsCenter, no matter how the cards end up on the table for this one, I don't think there is a national championship matchup that any of us should be disappointed with. For all the people that are detractors of the college football playoff, including one guy on the show who's not with us today, and TJ, and we know what he thinks of this. I will say the opposite of where TJ's approach is, and I understand why he's saying that, and I do agree with a lot of what he says. That being said, the final 4 teams that we have here, I think there is no bad possible matchup. There is a great story in all of them. Indiana, the out of nowhere story, the worst college football program in the history of time at the time that Kurt Cignetti took them over. Miami, are they back? The defense of Miami. The Ole Miss story, Oregon, after being undefeated last year, their only losses to the team they take down next. Do they take them down on the way? Out of all the possible matchups, because we're going to get into these matchups more next week, what's the one you want to see the most of the combinations we could have? It's a tough call because I don't think we get a bad one.
Yeah, I know. I'm the sentimental one, so I would say I think Indiana Ole Miss would be the 2 programs that haven't had football great at this national level success would be interesting. The other one I think it would be kind of funny would be Oregon Miami. I mean, because you're really talking about 2 teams that people have a lot of hate towards. I think a lot of teams hate both Oregon and Miami, so that would be, damn, who do I root for now? I think that would be, but you're right. I mean, if I had to pick one, I just think Indiana Ole Miss would be kind of a fun way to end the football season. So many stories there.
That would be an interesting one. And you're seeing the stat, and I wanted to give the stat its due justice here. You're seeing it put out. Oh, we're going to have a brand new CFP champion. None of these teams have won the college football playoff championship before. That's stupid. Let's put this in proper context here because we know the college football playoff hasn't been a thing for that long.
No.
Let's put it in the right context. Number 10, Miami, hasn't won a national title since 2001. Ole Miss has never won an outright national title. Oregon and Indiana have never won a national title. That's the way you want to look at this because that puts it into the right, proper perspective as we go forward. I'm looking at this, and I had a question for you off of this. We don't reseed the college football playoff. We're talking about ways to improve the college football playoff. If you were reseeding the college football playoff round by round, I'm not going to go backwards. We're going to talk about what we have on the table. If we were reseeding, we would have Miami against Indiana and Oregon and Ole Miss. I would really wish it was that way because I do think the two best teams are playing each other in the Peach Bowl. Would you be in favor of reseeding the college football playoff round by round?
No, I mean you got to do your job at the beginning, just like you do with the basketball tournament. And you put enough work into that to seed it the right way at the beginning, and this is just the way that the chips have fallen. Um, Gosh, I can't remember who. It was a Boston writer that tweeted this out. I can't remember who it was, so I can't give him credit. But he said, "Isn't it kind of funny to think about 10, 12 years ago?" We had sports writers determining the national championship, and now we have this. So, I mean, if you think about it, we've had progress, right? Before it was, kind of a mythical, whoever we think the voters, would create as number one. So at least now we're actually getting it on the field. So, sometimes we have to kind of take a look back and see, like, listen, where we've come from, it's better now, and probably in another 20 years it'll be a whole lot better than it is now.
Yeah, and it is that. And for the detractors that say we don't need a college football playoff, I give you a 10 versus 6 and a 5 versus 1. And the only team that's actually legitimately won an outright national title hasn't done it in over 20 years here. So for those of you like, we don't need this, well, in Brent Key of Georgia Tech, I think had the best possible quote you could have had about all of this. And I'm not saying that I have a problem with Dan Lanning saying what he was saying about how it needs to be done and Nick Saban speaking. I have no problem with any of that because I think they're all right. Brent Key's approach is, hey, is it messed up? Yes, it is. But the more I sit here and spend time complaining about the process, I'm wasting time trying to figure out how to be better. Let everyone else complain. I'm trying to pass their ass. And I think that is the absolute best approach. Because of what we're about to talk about in the NFL for week 18 here, Mac, I've told you for days, I've got all kinds of stats, and I want to see which ones you think actually matter. I got a couple on where we're at in the college football playoff. Number one. So I'm going to give you 3 of these if I can find the third one, at least 2 of them. You tell me which one's more impressive to you. Number 1. Ohio State record in CFP games on New Year's Eve. Their record is now 0-3 with that loss on New Year's Eve to Miami. Number 2, the Utah Mammoth outscored Alabama and Texas Tech combined yesterday in their college football playoff games. Is the second one. And as promised, as always, I feel like I'm on brand when I do this. The third one I can't friggin' find anywhere now. It was a really good one. So out of those 2, what's more impressive to you? What's more mind-blowing to you? Ohio State 0-3 in CFP games on New Year's Eve? Or the fact that the Utah Mammoth outscored Alabama and Texas Tech combined yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say the Mammoth. I mean, because when you get into these games, I think the last thing that you honestly think about is the team getting shut out. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really. I mean, you think these are in essence, the probably some of the best offensive teams that are out there. So, for Texas Tech not to score and Alabama just to score, 3, like that's a little mind-boggling to me because you figure that, they're going to put up something. I mean, it might not be a lot, but you just don't see them in essence getting almost shut out like that.
Yeah, and it is what it is. So again, for the detractors and the wine bags that we don't need a college football playoff, I don't think you can argue with these results. I don't think any matchup we get is a bad one. Again, we'll get into the specific breakdowns of the games next week on our shows. one more piece of context here, and then we'll get into the NFL. When we look at the average margin of victory by round in the college football playoffs, and this goes back to 2014, which was when we left the BCS model, obviously the 12-team playoff over the last 2 years. And everybody's bitching and whining and complaining about how the first 2 years of this one have started. Your first round average matchup this year, 16.2. Last year, 19.2. Quarterfinals, 18.2, 14.5. Semifinals, which obviously we don't know this year, 8.5. Championship game was 11. The only year I want to remind people that in the entire iteration of the college football playoff that we actually had good first round matchups was 2022. The 2 first round games, 3.5 points was the average margin of victory. 2023, 6.5 points. You go back to 2021, 22 points. 2020, 19 points. 2019, 20 points. You get the point. Obviously, as we know in 2022, those first round games are great. What we got in the championship game was a 58-point blowout when Georgia beat the hell out of TCU. So context there for what we got. I don't think you can argue with this. The only thing I'll argue with is myself. On Friday night, I lost a chance to win about $250 thanks to the Suckeyes. Last night, I lost a chance to win about $350 thanks to the Bulldogs. 2 teams that I typically don't like in general, don't like betting on, and they cost me a lot of money. I don't feel as bad about Georgia last night. Georgia losing, and this comes from Pickett Sports, our friends over there at Pickett Sports. $2.3 million lost and 33,000 bets on Georgia last night. So me and everybody outside of Oxford, Mississippi were on Georgia. I don't feel bad. Final thing on bowl season. And I wanted to give Tony his flowers, but he's not here today. We'll send him some flowers as we send him a Caleb Williams jersey as well. Iowa, with their outright win over Vanderbilt, we ended up finishing the 12 days of Bowlsmas at 9-4. So a little bit of shout to us. See, we can pick games. Not always. Sometimes we do good. Obviously, in the first round of the college football playoff, we did okay. Last night and yesterday and the day before, not so much. Let's get into the NFL. Because there's just a few things to talk about in the NFL. And there's massive games this weekend. But, Mac, we don't get to talk after today before Black Monday. And it makes me curious to give you a couple coaches here, one of which I don't agree with, but I think it's going to happen, and I hate it because it shouldn't. But let's look at some coaches that could be out of a job. And our guys over at Action Sports put together a group here today. Actually, Kathy Morris of Action Sports did this list, so shout out to Kathy. Coaches with the greatest risk of being fired. So now keep in mind when we say this takes some of your prediction markets. I'm not going to name them because I think they're ridiculous. They're not even relegated or regulated yet, so we're not even going to give them credit. But the top 5 coaches at risk of being fired on this list. Dan Quinn of the Commanders was 5th. Zach Taylor of the Bengals is 4th. John Harbaugh of the Ravens is 3rd. Jonathan Gannon of the Cardinals is 2nd. And topping the list with the coach having the greatest expectation of being fired is Pete Carroll of the Raiders. Out of those 5 coaches, Carroll, Gannon, Harbaugh, Taylor, and Quinn, give me one guy on that list that you think is actually safe and will still have a job by the time we come on next Tuesday, which means he should have a job, but it's not a guarantee.
I would say Harbaugh would just come to mind. I don't think if he wins or loses that game on Sunday, it's going to make much of a difference. I think he's going to kind of be one that, if he wants to move on, I think it's his decision to move on. So with that question, I would pick Harbaugh.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the Cardinals is the most interesting one to me because we know the situation with Kyler Murray. I think everybody's assumption is he's not coming back. Who will take on that contract? And a lot of people go, nobody would. Well, I tend to disagree with that. I think the Saints would take a hard look at that contract. I think Kyler Murray's come out and said he doesn't want to go somewhere like the Jets per se. But, I mean, if you're Kyler Murray, you don't really have a leg to stand on. And, I mean, if you were standing on a leg, we probably wouldn't know anyways. But the situation with Jonathan Gannon is interesting. And Monty Austinfort, the general manager, I think is also interesting because He was tasked at rebuilding and trying to get this Cardinals team going forward. Acquired a lot of draft picks, did a lot of things. You know the Murray situation. There's not a lot of veterans out there. Everybody keeps saying Mac Jones. Mac Jones is under contract with the 49ers for next year. You would have to trade for Mac Jones. So what do you do if you're the Cardinals? You know more than likely you're going to suck next year. So do you fire your coach now and bring in a new coach who's already going to start his tenure with your organization as a lame duck? Do you leave Gannon, maybe take the rookie quarterback, knowing that you're going to fire Gannon? I think he's the most interesting one because I can see a case for keeping him and a case for dumping him. Pete Carroll was the one I'm like, dude, when did we just stop allowing Super Bowl coaches a chance to build their organization? The Cardinal situation, I think, is the most mind-blowing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the Cardinals are like the Clippers in the NBA. They can never seem to get it
That's
right.
disrespectful to the Clippers, and I hate the
Yeah,
Clippers.
I know, but I mean, we've been here. We've both been in Arizona long enough. I mean, we know it's like just when it seems like they're moving in the right direction, that it blows up. They just can't seem to find the right personnel to get it done. I mean, um, I think this is the first year the fans, I think, have really kind of soured on the Cardinals. I mean, Cardinal fans have been like, ah, whatever. But this is the first year I think they were really disappointed more so than ever. I don't know why. I mean, it's a lot to go into that. But
Have
anyway,
Cardinal fans ever not been sour on the Cardinals? I think is a
well,
better
I mean,
question.
I just think a lot of times they don't expect to win, and I think for some reason they thought they were going to be better this year. And it's not a good football team, and it just I mean, they've tried to clean the house kind of thing, and that didn't seem to work. Like I said, it seems like every move they make is just it ends up being nuclear, and it just doesn't work for them. So I mean, you can't have Murray come back. That's just past. It's not working. So they got to really figure out what they want to do there. And I think Gannon gets another shot at it.
Yeah, and if I'm the Cardinals, I'd probably give him another shot at it because you're going to have a last place schedule. You've got a quarterback situation in flux. I mean, I think Jacoby Brissett is the right guy, and that's where I think the maybe Trinidad Chambliss type of situation. It's tough because you're going to sell tickets next year, the year after this next year, if you draft a guy like Arch Manning because he's a Manning. You're going to sell tickets that way, and the quarterback class next year is way better. So, but what do you do this year? And that's the tough thing. And if you have Jacoby Brissett and that's the guy that you go forward with, that's fine. But there's also like, what do the Falcons do with Kirk Cousins? Is Kirk Cousins going to get a chance to go somewhere else? And I don't obviously have his contract situation up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he's got one more year there. There's teams that need him. And with a weak
Right.
quarterback class, a team like the Cardinals needs players at every single direction and level. They're not going to get a huge haul for a guy like Kyler Murray. Interested to see how that thing
You
plays
know,
out.
and just think about that. I mean, if you're a Cardinals fan and you're going to go into the year with Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback, I mean, he's serviceable, but I mean, do you really think that he's the guy that's going to get you to a Super Bowl? Come on,
Canning
come
for
on.
Manning. I've already got the shirts printed.
There you go.
You know, it'll be interesting. I think, you know, obviously we've got the two jobs open. We know we got the Giants job open. Marcus Freeman has apparently said no. Obviously, several jokes came after that. Marcus Freeman said no to the Giants when he realized they couldn't petition for an automatic playoff spot, yada, yada, yada. The Giants, interesting. The Dolphins who will now have Troy Aikman as an advisor in hiring their general manager and what they do with the situation there. I think the biggest one to watch for me, and as a guy we talked about the other day, Sean McDermott. If the Bills defense lays a giant turd in the playoffs again, and we've talked about McDermott a lot. I've talked about the situation with Buffalo a lot. I think it's deplorable that the best quarterback in football does not have a number one wide receiver. I think if Buffalo doesn't at least get to the AFC title game, at the very minimum, they have to make the move on Sean McDermott. You've reached your ceiling there. And I think what happens not only this weekend, obviously in the wild card weekend of the playoffs, a lot of things are going to go forward. Billy V checking in. Speaking of Bills fans, yeah, I totally think Dan Quinn
Yeah,
is safe.
yeah.
Anybody that thinks Dan
So
Quinn should not be
no.
safe is I've got questions for you. I
So
absolutely think Dan Quinn's safe.
so before I looked at the article, I wrote down three teams, and Las Vegas was one, and I did put Arizona because I just think, but again, I think that it's going to be interesting what happens with these guys as well. If things don't go well on Sunday, um, will they make a move? And I mean, here's the thing: you're talking about, who's not going to want to coach that franchise? That's there's a lot of good football franchises, but that's one of the top ones.
Maybe they should just do a trade. Harbaugh for Tomlin. Put him in. Wouldn't that
Well,
be
maybe
storybook?
McDermott and Tomlin just switch spots. It's like the same thing.
Going back to that
But
William and Mary connection there.
yes, but it's interesting to say. I know I've kind of joked about it, but I really do think that something's going to happen in Pittsburgh. I think either he's going to go, or you're going to see a whole new set of coaches come in there. Something's got to happen. I think
I
something has
think
to change.
I think, and we'll obviously get into the details of this matchup here shortly, but I think either way, both Pittsburgh, no matter what happens this weekend and whichever team advances to the playoffs, I think either way, Pittsburgh and Baltimore are going to have sit downs with the coaches because you're not firing either one of those guys. It's
No,
what do you
no,
want? This is what we want. Okay. And
right?
obviously, those two guys in the Mike Vrabel ilk, if you will not be out of work very long. I think
No,
Zach Taylor's an interesting one if I'm the Cardinals. Because if Cincinnati were to blow him out, I think the guy's a good football coach. I could see a
hmm
fit if the Cardinals would be patient with Zach Taylor. I think Cincinnati needs a break from Zach Taylor. I mean, let's be honest here, Mac, before we get into this weekend's games. The entire AFC North could have new coaches next year. The entire division. I
yeah,
mean,
that would be
that's
funny.
crazy, but it's
Yeah, I
also
mean
not
this.
far-fetched.
No, it's really not, and I don't think it's all Zach. I mean, Zach Taylor's not. I mean, his quarterback has been hurt the last couple of years. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that makes all the difference. I mean, they for sure last year, if Burrow doesn't get hurt, they make the playoffs. I mean, I think that's a for sure. So I would be surprised. I still like with the Cincinnati. I mean, out of all of those four teams in that division, I like the Bengals' chances of being better next year than any of them.
Yeah, and anytime you got Joe Burrow under center, if he's healthy,
Mhm.
you're going to be you should be considered to be a force and a factor here. All right, let's get
Yep.
into these games for this weekend, shall
All
we?
right. Well,
You
let's
got
do it.
something else there? Spit it out. Spit
No,
it
I'm
out,
good. I've
Mackenzie.
got it. I'm good.
All
I'm good.
right,
Let's
all
go.
right. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along. We get as many of them up as we can, but a big weekend in the NFL. Obviously, you got a lot of guys with incentives. That leads to a lot of betting angles. But let's talk about the games that actually matter so we can finish this postseason picture here. And we're going to go kind of in a little bit of a goofy order here. What's at stake? Well, the Broncos, AFC West champions, they enter Week 18 needing a win versus the Chargers or losses/ties by both the Patriots and Jaguars to clinch the number one seed in the first round bye. The Chargers are playing nobody that matters. Anybody that has bruises or injuries in need of healing will not be on the field. Of course, Jim Harbaugh has to say it in a way that Jim Harbaugh can't. I think we're going to assume that the Broncos are going to win that game and clinch the number one seed. Where it gets interesting is what happens in the AFC South. So the Jaguars, they have the widest range of outcomes out of any of these teams, and that's where we're going to
Mhm.
start as the Jaguars host the Titans with a lot on the line because Houston, on the role that they're in, is still in this. So the Jags can finish as high as first. They can fall as far as seventh, depending on how the weekend plays out. The most likely outcome, 86% chance that this happens per NFL.com, is that they win or tie versus the Titans, and the Texans either lose or tie versus the Colts. Their most probable playoff spot happens to be the 3 seed. So it's interesting because Jacksonville, to me, of all the teams in the playoffs or that could be in the playoffs, Jacksonville is the team I don't really think I trust no matter where they bounce. I know it's been cool. It's been fun. Duval, yeah, he made it happen. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence until I see him do it in the playoffs, and I don't trust this Jaguars team. I can foresee a situation. I don't think it's likely, but I can foresee a situation Where the Jacksonville that I expect to show up Sunday is the Jacksonville I have no idea is going to show up Sunday, and they were to lose the Titans. I don't think the Texans lose the Colts. And I think D'Amico Ryans is going all out for that one. Do you think the Titans have any chance to beat the Jaguars this weekend?
No, I really don't. Both those games, I put those are both locks. I put those in Sharpie. There's no way that Jacksonville or Houston loses this weekend. Too much at stake. Um, I mean, Jacksonville is a team I love to hate, but they're getting it done. They're getting it done. Not in sometimes the most impressive ways, but they're getting it done. I just can't imagine them losing to Tennessee.
So when we break this down and we look a little forward here, it'll be interesting because of the play. So you mentioned you have the Texans and the Jaguars in a quote Sharpie kind of situation. Max permanent marker that we've busted out on the show before. We will bust it out a lot in 2026. Clip that. Somebody will take that and run with it. But one of the more popular parlays I've seen being tossed around for this weekend is as it pertains to AFC playoff picture. Broncos, Patriots, Texans, Jaguars, all teams that have to win because they got to win to get what they need in front of them. All four of them winning on the money line, it's a plus 108. A lot of people playing that. Hey, four teams with a lot to play for, they're going to show up to play. And that is always the crazy thing about Week 18 is certain guys are on incentives. Certain guys on teams that have a lot to play for have incentives, whether it's 2 catches, another touchdown, 31 yards, all that kind of stuff. The two wildest weeks to bet on in the NFL every year. Week 1, because you have no idea who's going to be that much better than last year. Or, like TJ said, about the Patriots, he can't get over what happened in Week 1 to the Patriots when the Raiders went to Foxborough and beat them. So
Right.
Week 18 is the same way because of all the variables. So that's one angle that everybody's playing here. I don't think either one of them lose, Jacksonville or Houston. I did see an interesting stat. You know, the only quarterback in the NFL to play every single snap for his team, every single one this season is? He's in the AFC. He's in the AFC South. We know it's not a quarterback in Indy. It's Cam Ward of the Titans. He's played every single snap. Every single snap for the Titans this year. Here's the thing you need to know as far as the NFL goes. Expect the unexpected this week because we have no freaking idea what's happening. So, assuming that happens, if you want to put it in percentage points as far as the AFC field is going to go, the Broncos have the highest percentage of the 1 seed, 82%. New England has the highest percentage of the 2 seed, 69%. Jaguars, 58% at 3. Obviously, the winner of the Steelers-Ravens game is 4. The Texans, Chargers, and Bills, which is the order that they are currently in right now, Houston has a 68% chance to be the 5 seed. You've got Buffalo, who actually has a 40% chance to be the 6 seed. And that's interesting because Harbaugh said he's not playing anybody that needs whatever Harbaugh-ism you want to throw in there. He's playing nobody. He doesn't care about this game. He wants his guys healthy. A lot of people say that's the right approach. If we move Buffalo from the 7 line to the 6 line, that would give them a date, assuming these percentages hold up, with the Jaguars in Jacksonville in the first round. If they stay at 7, that would give them another matchup the third of the year with the Patriots. How do you project the AFC field, knowing that in the AFC, outside of Steelers-Ravens, there really isn't a ton to play for other than positioning?
Yeah, I just don't see many of the top teams losing. Um, just the matchup is not there for them to lose. I mean, yeah, you've gone through this part. I mean, I guess if there was one that I would be worried about, I would be worried about the Patriots because the Dolphins are kind of a little bit of a wild card. They've played a little bit better the last couple of weeks, so but I'm sure they'll throw out. I mean, that stat about how Miami, sucks in cold weather and snow, and I'm sure it's not going to be very warm in Foxborough. So that would be the one that kind of worries me more than any of these other games.
Yeah, and you also have Quinn Ewers playing in that game for Miami in the snow in Foxborough. So I think the AFC, I think we get a flip-flop at the 6-7 spot. Six, seven.
No,
I
no.
think we get a flip flop in the 6-7 spot between the Chargers and the Bills. I think the Bills
Right.
end up with the sixth spot, which would put them in Jacksonville. Which I think, if you're a Bills fan, honestly, that's more the pathway
I'm all
I
right.
want to go. I want to go to
Yeah.
Jacksonville. I think that's a good spot for them. I think the Chargers Patriots game would be interesting, assuming health and some Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel stuff. There's some interesting storylines here. The NFC is where it gets a hell of a lot more confusing because, as we know in the NFC, the biggest game in the NFC is the Niners Seahawks game on Saturday
Hmm.
night. That's for number one seed, the NFC West. We also have the Panthers and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, who are one win in their last 8 games, and the Panthers, who can't seem to take something that's handed to them right in front of them. But that's not all that matters. So we've got a Panthers Bucks game, and that's where we'll start here, which starts our Saturday. Panthers in Tampa off of just having beaten the Bucks and dropping their opportunity here. We know the Panthers play well against good teams, but I don't know if we consider Tampa Bay a good team right now. What's your first thoughts when you look at this Panthers Bucks matchup?
To me, Tampa Bay is just. I mean, they turnovers have been the biggest problem, but I think there's probably more problems on that Tampa Bay sideline than anything else. It's like I think this is the anti Ole Miss. I don't think they're playing for their coach. I think they've packed it up. Uh, I think Carolina wins this one. I just there's nothing that I see and the Bucks over the last couple weeks. Love Baker Mayfield, but I don't see it. Just they look like a very dysfunctional team.
They absolutely do. And we talked about this the other day, as you see on the screen there, your 4 quarterbacks that'll highlight your NFC side of the weekend starting tomorrow. And,
Mm.
the Bucky Irving thing from last weekend on the sideline, just
Hmm.
ripping into the offensive line and the way they've played down the stretch. And we've talked about Todd Bowles, and this is the toughest game of the weekend for me. I think clearly, if I look at the entire schedule, and I'm not messing with a lot of these games because these games with two teams that have nothing to play for, which there are a handful of those, I'm staying away from those because those are the biggest wild cards. The
Right.
interesting thing for me is the fact that I think, and again, I said this the other day, it's one of those things we don't like to say because it's the worst thing you can say to an athlete. But this Tampa team looks like there's a lot of quit in it, and there has been for a
Hmm.
while here. And Bowles has been there for a long time. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, but they just don't look very in sync. On the flip side of that, do I trust a Carolina team that's never been in this position before? That I've trusted a couple times and they've bit me in the ass. I think Tampa and Carolina is the hardest one to predict.
Yeah, and I mean Carolina's not good on the road either. They're just 3-5 on the road. I mean, you're right. I mean, is this the time that Tampa Bay steps up and just says, screw it, we don't care about this situation. We're just going to go out and win this game. I mean, but I just don't see it. I mean, that's not the trend. Um, that's with this Buccaneers team. I mean, it's been trending down and in a hard way. So I think Carolina's going to find a way to get this one.
If Carolina doesn't get that one,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's a sick part of my brain that really hopes they don't.
Right.
Because then at 1 o'clock Eastern, New Orleans is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to take on the Atlanta Falcons. We know about the Falcons Saints hatred with each other. New Orleans has played really well over late. Tyler Shook
Hmm.
has really settled in to assuming he's their permanent starter. I think he's made a hell of a case to give him
Hmm.
another look next year for it.
Yep.
But if Carolina loses that game to Tampa, the Falcons hold the entire fate of the NFC South. And we joked about this the other night, but it's as true gets. The most NFC South thing possible is that the Saints and Falcons on Sunday morning could be playing for a division championship that neither one of them are going to win. If Tampa Bay beats Carolina on Saturday night, Atlanta would need to lose to New Orleans for Tampa to win the South, because if Tampa beat New Orleans, or if New Orleans beat Atlanta, that helps Tampa. If Falcons beat the Saints, That helps Carolina if Carolina loses. The fact that that game could matter on Sunday morning is so damn hilarious to me. And I can take it a step further, Vegas Mac. You
Oh
know I can.
gosh, I know. Let's
Somebody
hear
threw this
this.
out the other day on X. What's the Falcons' win percentage from the last decade when mathematically eliminated from the playoffs? It feels like it's about 80%. Somebody actually did the digging on this. They're
My
12
gosh.
and 4 Atlanta is when they're mathematically eliminated. They are 53 and 78 in all other games. One of my favorite bets of this entire weekend is Carolina +3. I think they lose, but they lose a close game. Atlanta on the money line against New Orleans because of this very stat right here. And
Hmm.
San Francisco on the money line, who is still at a lot of places a plus money dog to the Seahawks. You think Carolina is going to win. I think Tampa wins. I think Carolina wins the division, even though Tampa wins on Saturday night. And maybe that's personal preference because I just want to see it because it's the NFC South and it should be a shit show. The biggest game of the weekend, depending on who you talk to, as far as the most on the line, are the last two games we have to talk about. We'll start on Saturday night. And the big question for this game for Seattle is which Sam Darnold shows up on Saturday night. Is it look like Sam Darnold on the right from last weekend or actual Sam Darnold on the left? I've seen a lot of people talking about this Niners Seahawks game, Mac, and obviously the history between these two teams. It's almost 6 years ago to the date from when they met at the end of the season and played a classic up in Lumen Field. This one in Santa Clara. Obviously, the door opened for the 49ers to not pack a suitcase for the rest of the year. The door opened for the Seahawks to really kind of stamp their way in and go, hey, we actually are a pretty good football team. I don't think the Seahawks, and I've said this a bunch of times, I don't think the Seahawks all year have gotten credit for how good they are. And I don't think you can put any stock into the week one matchup between these two teams. Seattle with Sam Darnold getting used to a new offense, new way of doing things. San Francisco, miles of injuries since then. I can't wait to see this one because of the history. First thoughts, Niners Seahawks, Saturday night from Santa Clara with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman in the A-team from ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to look at this. I mean, Seattle's been so good, not only in the conference but on the road. I mean, they're 7-1 on the road, so that hasn't been a factor for them. Um, you know, I guess if it comes down to the little things, if I'm concerned from a Seattle standpoint, like you said, is Sam Donald going to make those bad decisions? But this is a 49ers team, and I talked about it. I said I worry about them from a defensive standpoint. If they're going to be able to hang in there. If this game gets, when one team needs a stop, are they going to be able to get that stop? I mean, they got it against Chicago last week when they needed it, just barely, but they still got it. So I think if there ever was kind of a toss up, I mean, I'm really there. I mean, I don't know where to lean. Um, do you have a room available? Because I know this is going to be tough on your household.
Well, I mean, the honest thing here is since wifey and I have been together, Seattle has only beaten San Francisco one time. That was last year. Brock Purdy 6-1 against the Seahawks, and we've got the whole family coming over for this
Ooh,
game on Saturday
okay.
night. And because they are from Seattle, it's an interesting dynamic. But I have a wild card in my back pocket because her dad is a huge fan of Brock Purdy, being that he
Um,
played his high school ball here in Arizona. So dad's kind of on the split side. The rest of the family is against me,
th-
and that's totally fine because that's
th-
exactly how I want it. You mentioned
right.
something though. And you like these kind of things. I did this for you.
All
You said
right.
it's kind of a toss-up game, and you're exactly right. Here's a couple of things that support that even more. San Francisco's won 6 straight. Seattle's won 6 straight. Both of them their last loss to the LA Rams. Late game success rate, the 49ers offense, 55.9, that's first in the league. Seattle's defense, 39.6, which is second in the league. Red zone EPA, the 49ers offense, first in the league. Seattle's defense, second in the league. So obviously the matchup on paper here is San Francisco's offense against Seattle's defense.
Hmm.
I really think it's San Francisco's defense versus Seattle's offense for the very reasons that you just said.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just thinking like, where do I have, where is my biggest trust? I think my biggest trust is that the San Francisco offense is going to find a way to get through that Seattle defense. I think it's not a lot, but I just think if I look at, you start looking at all the little things, I think I have a little more trust in the San Francisco of those four units. Both offenses and both defenses. I have more faith or trust in the 49ers offense than any of the other three groupings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Here's more to even make it even harder on you. In 2005, a new pope was elected. The Seahawks win 13 games. They
So,
advance to the Super Bowl.
so this, yes.
2013, a new pope was elected. The Seahawks win 13 games, advance to the Super Bowl, and win. 2025, we have a new pope, even though he's a Bears fan.
Bears
He's
fan,
elected,
yes.
13 games. What happens to the Seahawks team? Very fascinating stuff there from two teams that obviously there's not a whole lot of love lost between the two of them. I think that's cooled a lot. A lot of that was the Harbaugh Carroll part of that
Hmm.
rivalry. And I think Dan Orlovsky put it best. And this was after Sunday night's game. And when you're handicapping the 49ers side of things as they go into the playoffs here, their defense can get them knocked out in the first round. Their offense can go score against anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Hmm. Right.
That's and I we've said that. I said it a few weeks
Hmm.
ago. We know the Niners defense isn't going to be their strong suit. It's not why they'll win a championship this year if they are lucky
Hmm.
enough to do so. Their
I
offense
think,
is good enough to do that. Is it the guy calling the plays for the defense of San Francisco that can put them in the right position to make the right plays? I think is where everybody's kind of I think it's can the Niners D make plays and which Sam Darnold shows up.
yeah, I mean, again, this is not going to be a shock for anybody who's watched these teams, but I think the first quarter is going to be very, very telling. We've seen Seattle get off to some big leads. You have to, I want to see how comfortable, and they don't have to get off to a big lead. I just got to see that they're comfortable in this situation. And so I think this is a game to me where I think the first quarter is very, very important.
Yeah, and even the first half for the Seahawks, and it's been my thing with the Seahawks over the last month and a half here is their inability to score 10 points in the first half. And the thing that
Right.
Seattle's defense does so well is we've talked about how little they blitz and everything else. Is they put you in bad positions, in those third
Hmm.
and long positions. And
Right.
where a lot of teams get a little passive and keep you in front of the sticks and they'll let you catch something, they make the tackle. Seattle feasts on you when they put you in the third and long
Hmm.
situations. And you've got a quarterback in Brock Purdy who since week 15 has been the best quarterback in the league who doesn't make a lot of mistakes. It
Right.
is fascinating. I think it's probably the most evenly matched these two teams have been maybe ever.
I think this should be the Sunday night game, quite honestly. I mean, I really do. But that's just my thing. I think this is a better game than what you're going to get with Pittsburgh and Baltimore from a game standpoint.
Yeah, probably from a game standpoint, but I could see their angle in going
Yeah.
that route. You know, we talked about the whole Pope thing with the Seahawks as we transition.
Yeah.
Give me a pick since we're here.
Like I said, I trust the 49ers offense just a little bit more. So I'm going to say the 49ers by a field goal.
Niners by a field goal. Billy V checking in if I can grab the right mouse here on the table. I think that's the thing. I mean, I think we're
Hmm.
all watching Darnold because he was in this exact same position
Yep.
last year and it did not go over well for him. I think there's a way
Nope.
better team around him on both sides of the ball right now. So, needless to say, I'm taking the 49ers. They're going to come back up here in a second. You know, we mentioned the stat with the Popes. Ravens Steelers in week 18
Hmm.
will be the first winner take all meeting in the final week of the regular season in the history of this rivalry, a rivalry that goes a long way back. Pittsburgh's had the upper hand lately, these two guys,
Hmm.
as you can see here.
Good
Best
friends.
of
Good
friends. I'm
friends.
sure they hang out and
Yes.
have beers all the time. But these guys and these teams know each other well. I think when I look at this one, you know, you've got questionable health for Lamar Jackson. He says he's going to play. Some people have even questioned his commitment to the Ravens in general. In general, man, I can't wait to get rid of this thing. Puberty is a bitch. But we go into this one. I like the fact that this is Sunday night game, the final game. I think the NFL had great options here with either the Niners Hawks game or this one. Maybe a little advanced planning in what they're maybe thinking about doing as far as playoff scheduling, since barring a miracle, the Texans aren't going to be able to host their go-to playoff spot. I know TJ's not going to know what to do
And
that day.
I
But
know,
the
goodness.
fact that these two teams have never played in a winner-take-all game like this, that one was kind of eye-opening to me because obviously there's no love lost, and the history here goes miles and miles.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, both these teams have to consider this season somewhat of a disappointment. I think Baltimore even more so than Pittsburgh. This is not, where they thought they'd be. The Steelers had a chance to bury Baltimore early in the season and didn't do it. And now Baltimore has played better the second half to get back into it. I mean, you were first on that. You said it. They were going to have a chance to do this. I mean, I just think this is, if you haven't seen the Steelers Ravens game, I'll prep you. There'll be field goals. There'll be a lot of, I
What?
think, yeah, I know. I think a lot of defense is kind of what you see. This game always comes down to who makes a mistake. That's what it comes down to. You go back and you look, somebody makes a mistake, somebody throws an interception, somebody fumbles the ball. That's a possession that gets turned. That seems to be how this game is won.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that's kind of hanging over this game, and I think does make a massive difference in this game to me, is will we see the return of T.J. Watt, who could return after his surgery for the collapsed lung.
Mhm.
That's going to be interesting. A big loss, I think, in this type of game for the Steelers is the loss of their Andre the Giant at tight end in Darnell Washington, who has a broken arm. He's on injured reserve, out for the rest of the year. I think the biggest key here, if we're going to take it from an X factor and keys to the game kind of standpoint, is Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, and Peyton Wilson, the inside linebackers for the Steelers, because the inside linebackers for the Steelers in a game against the Ravens have to slow down the freight train that ran all over Green Bay last week in Derrick Henry. I really don't get how the Pittsburgh Steelers are over a field goal dogs in this game. I understand when we're looking at it on paper, the inconsistency of the Steelers offense and all that, if you will. But if I'm looking at these two teams from start to finish this year, and I'm going, it's a home game for the Steelers, so let me throw that part out. Essentially, what we're saying with this spread is that the Ravens are a touchdown better than the Steelers, theoretically, if they were playing this game in Baltimore. I don't see that, and I see value in Pittsburgh here, because if I'm looking at both of these teams and their body of work for the season, and when they've been at their best, and when they've been at their worst, and when they've been at what they've been for most of the year, Pittsburgh's still the better team to me, even though play calling is a huge question, as it always is with the Steelers.
I agree with that. I think the Steelers are a better team this year. But I mean, I think you can kind of throw that out. Here are the things, from a Steelers fan's perspective, that worry me. Number one, the fact that they've already beat them this year, and then that it's at home. The Steelers really haven't played well at home, and it always seems that the series gets split, 1-1. And so if that's the case, then this is the one obviously Baltimore would would win. Now, the other perspective, it looks like T.J. Watt's going to play, but I don't know how much he's going to play and how much he's going to make a difference. And the Steelers normally have a good control of Lamar Jackson, and I've talked about that a lot. I mean, this is the one team that he doesn't seem to have like great success against. But the biggest problem is, can they stop Derrick Henry? This is a team that hasn't been able to stop the run very much at all this year. That's I think my biggest concern is, can they stop Derrick Henry, and can they score a freaking touchdown at all? At all? I mean, I don't know. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to go with the Steelers here. I like the Steelers position. Mac's going to have his thoughts
Mm,
on Sunday Night Mac this week as far as which way he plays the game. All right, got some stats before we get to our picks. Get up on out of
right.
here. 11 times this year in the NFL, there's been a team that's gone the entire game without punting the football. Obviously, we heard about that a lot with the 49ers and Thomas Morstead. That's not where I'm going with this one. The teams in those games that had no punts went 8-3 in those 11 games. One team in the NFL has all three of the losses in games that they did not punt, and they are going to be a playoff team for sure. Do you know which team that might be? I guess it's kind of a stat trivia question, if you will.
Yeah. No.
And when I tell you who it
The
is, you're gonna
Bears?
no. When I tell you who it
All
is,
right.
you're really gonna laugh because you're gonna go, "That's why you put it into the rotation today." It's the Green Bay Packers. Have lost all three of those games without punting. They lost to the Panthers, they lost to the Bears, and they lost to the Ravens. So those of you that have questions about the Packers in the postseason, there you go. In the past 9 years, every team that has won a Super Bowl has had at least a top 11 offense and a top 13 defense. Every team that has made it has had at least a top 11 offense. Currently, there are 5 teams that fit the Super Bowl winning criteria. Those teams in the NFC, the Rams and the Bears. In the AFC, the Patriots, the Jaguars, and the Buffalo Bills. If I gave you an option right now to make a bet for the Super Bowl, you can have the Rams, Bears, Bills, Jaguars, and Patriots, or you take the rest of the field. Are you going against history there, and is the Super Bowl champion not on that list?
No, I think the champion is in that list. I am not
Interesting
taking.
stuff.
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Next
I do.
Wednesday on the show, we'll give you our predictions for the Super Bowl champions on Wednesday, as we know the entire field. Obviously, we'll get into the college football playoffs. Everything goes back to
Playoffs.
kind of normal. Playoffs.
Playoffs.
Everything goes back to kind of normal here for us, which is kind of exciting and also kind of terrifying at the same time. Let's get into some liquid locks for Week 18 of the NFL. Again, I would advise you to look at a lot of the incentive markets, guys that need a couple of catches, 31 yards to reach a milestone, get a bonus. It's kind of interesting this year how many guys are in that spot on teams that have still positioning and a lot to play for this weekend. So I stayed away from some of those. My favorite bet of the weekend is Carolina +3, San Francisco on the money line, Atlanta on the money line because of the stats that we gave you earlier. As far as my liquid lock for the weekend, I'm going to go to the Saturday game between Carolina and Tampa. I do like the Panthers in that game +3. I think Tedero McMillan's going to have a huge game, so I'm going to play him over his yards mark at 58.5, which is at what it's at now. Pretty sure if you wait until tomorrow, it's not going to stay there. Don't say I didn't tell you. And Chris Godwin of the Bucks for over 3.5 receptions. So Carolina +3. Tedero McMillan, 59 yards receiving or more, and Chris Godwin for 4 receptions. That's a +468 if you want to play it that way. But I'm really looking at that Carolina-Tampa game. I think it's going to be not quite the appetizer we would hope it to be for Niners-Seahawks. It'll be an appetizer of some sort, probably from a restaurant you would never return to is probably the way I can describe that. But I like those plays in that one. You've got a couple of plays for Week 18. Vegas, Mac, take it away.
Yeah, we have a lot of people under the weather and whatnot, so I decided to go with the under for my liquid locks for this week. I'm going to start with Detroit and Chicago, under 50.5. I think just because of the weather in this game, it's not going to be very nice in Chicago. It's going to be cold. It's kind of miserable. Detroit doesn't have anything to play for. I just think that game's going to go under the 50.5. And then also the Steelers in Baltimore, that one under 40.5 because, well, I mean, Baltimore would have to score at least 35 of those points, and I don't think that's going to happen. That game is typically a low scoring game. So I'm starting the year under 2026 for the year of the under.
T's probably not watching, but I know if I was in the crazy brain of TJ, that is the crazy brain of TJ. What I'm seeing out of the 3 main games this weekend, the 3 that have the most to play for, the Carolina-Tampa game, Seattle-San Francisco, and Baltimore-Pittsburgh, I can see TJ having like a 6-way kicker prop point
Oh
parlay for
yeah.
this thing. I'm going to give you 3 more betting nuggets here, Mac, before we get
All
on out of
right.
here. As far as the 3 big games only, this comes from our guys at the Action Network. All 8 of the Panthers' wins this season have come as underdogs. Their 8th win as a dog is tied for the most by any team in the Super Bowl era. A record they could break this week against the Bucks. Tampa Bay's 8-game against the spread losing streak is their longest as a franchise since 82 and 83. They're their longest in a single season in franchise history. So, trends would tell you that the Panthers are probably the side. A night to remember for the Hawks and the Niners. It's only the second week 17 or 18 divisional matchup, which both teams have a winning percentage of 75% or more. The other, which involves Sam Darnold, was last year, Vikings-Lion week 18. As everybody's talked about, the Niners could famously not have to leave San Francisco to go to the Super Bowl if they keep winning. Brock Purdy at home is 19-8 straight up in his career, including 11-3 straight up in the month of December or later, and 5-0 in the month of January or later. Finally, since 2005, in the Pittsburgh-Baltimore series, the underdog is 30-12-3 against the spread. The underdog in the regular season, 25-7-3 against the spread when Tomlin and Harbaugh face off. So Tomlin has done very well in the underdog situation here. Do any of those numbers sway any of your thoughts on the 3 major games in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I still like Pittsburgh in this game. I mean, I really do. I think they're going to find a way to do it. So that last one that you threw out about how well how the team that is the underdog does in those games doesn't surprise me. That's why I kind of leaning towards Pittsburgh.
I think you just tipped me off to a parlay I'm going to play this weekend.
I'm glad I
Carolina,
could
San
help.
Francisco, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh. That's where we're going.
Remember, it's not a primetime game. I'd be a little concerned about Atlanta. It's not a primetime game.
They're 12-4 in the last decade when they're mathematically eliminated. They play best when there's nothing to play for. I'm all over Atlanta in this one. I think that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, not that anybody gives a shit to watch it, and why would you unless you're a fan of Tampa or Carolina? But I think that's an interesting game just because this New Orleans team, and we talk about these teams at the end of the year, Mac, that try and typically tank for better draft position. New Orleans has kind of found a little bit of a swagger, and Tyler Shuck's playing well. I mean, as far as the rest of the schedule goes this weekend, is there a single other game? I know you're like me; you're only going to watch the games that really matter. But is there another game this weekend that you're like, I kind of want to see this? Because right now, when I'm looking at them, no, there ain't shit.
Um, let me peruse real quick.
Be careful, it's rough.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. No. No. Not. I mean, Cleveland Cincinnati is always entertaining. I mean, if you're looking for, you know, a game in the morning to or in the first window, I would say that one is usually entertaining. So I'll give that one a little bit of a peek. But yeah, ooh no, it's too bad Indianapolis and Houston. Too bad Indianapolis fell apart because that would have been a fun game.
That, I think, would have been a prime candidate for the Saturday night primetime game if it meant more, because that one screams like,
Yeah,
hey, this is a Saturday night primetime game.
but I definitely will not be watching the Kansas City Vegas game. That one is a no.
What if it's Trav's last game, man? You're not going to watch Trav's
That's okay.
last game?
Oh no, that's okay. I don't think Taylor will be there. It'll be in Vegas. Now Taylor's not going to be there, so my wife won't even want to watch it. So it's all good.
I don't think most Raider fans want to watch that game, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest with you. All right. Vegas Mac will have some thoughts on the Metro here in about an hour on our social channels, and then our stuff per usual throughout the week. And next week we go back to normal Tuesday and Wednesday night, 5:30 on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast, Thursday and Friday, lunchtime live, 11:30 on the West Coast, 2:30 on the East Coast. Do you have any final parting words as we launch into what's going to be an incredible sports year in 2026? I can friggin' feel it in my bones. because I won't bet on Georgia or Ohio State ever friggin' again.
I hope I hope we get a couple of really good games. We were lucky with those quarterfinal games, even though they didn't go the way we thought they were. They were fun to watch. I want the good games this weekend to be really good games. I mean, I want the Steelers in Baltimore. I want that game. I want the good games to be good. I want that San Francisco Seattle game to be a fun game to watch.
I can guarantee you one thing. When all three of us are back together next Wednesday, the happiest guy on this show, without a shadow of a doubt, will be TJ. And that's a guarantee because it'll be on to the next Raiders season. You have the opportunity to either be really happy or really pissed off. I'm going to just be waiting to figure out where the Niners play their next game because it doesn't matter. I'm just kidding. I'm pretty sure the whole family's going to disown me after Saturday night.
Do we have a delivery date on the jersey?
Well, considering who it's going to be coming from, he might not get it till next year. But no, we don't have an official. We don't have an official delivery date. I might have to cancel the order and send T to his favorite local mall in the SoCal area and pick one up there. But we are efforting making sure he has a bright orange, hideous Caleb Williams jersey to wear for the entirety that the Bears are in the postseason. So I really hope it works out where Niners-Bears could be like the NFC title game for my own personal interest. I'd love to see the Bears win the Super Bowl for my own personal interest in seeing T go through a month of wearing that thing. But I don't know. You think the Niners defense isn't good enough to win them a Super Bowl, is what some people are saying. I think they're good enough to make the plays at the right time. The Bears defense, definitely not good enough to win them a Super Bowl.
That's for sure.
So for everybody behind the scenes, for T, for Vegas Mac, I'm Mike. We are back in normal rotation. Hallelujah next week. Enjoy the weekend, man. Hopefully it lives up to all the hype and it starts tomorrow night. You know the drill. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. With you on Tuesday. We're out.